allegiance?
Sure.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please stay rise so we can have a moment of silence for servicemen and women serving us abroad, and to our law enforcement officers and our fire personnel across the country. Thank you. Please be seated. Okay. I'd like to open public comment. Can I get a motion going? Do we need a motion for public comment? No. Okay. What's today? 16. Chief Hart, where are you? Did you come forward, sir? Yes, sir.
As you may be aware, this is our annual Employee Awards ceremony we just had and concluded over at the police department. Twice a year we take the time to recognize promotions and achievements within our department, and we feel it's important that the people whom we serve are aware of these honors that are bestowed upon the officers here. I'd like to introduce the members of my command staff, Captain Falone, who commands Airport Division, and Captain Dusso, who commands operations here in Londonderry. At this time, I'd like to introduce some folks whom we've promoted recently. First, Captain Robert Michaud. He will succeed Captain Steve Tatham, who formerly commanded Services Division. Next up is Lieutenant Kevin Cavallero, 18-year police veteran, last 10 years here in Londonderry, been a sergeant a long time, done a great job. Next up, Lieutenant Ryan Carney.
Congratulations.
Ryan's been with us just under 10 years, outstanding officer, one of the true leaders of our agency. Next, Sergeant Brian Allaire. Brian came to us when we took over the airport just before, and has done an outstanding job crafting for himself this leadership position recognized by his peers. Next, Sergeant Mark Morrison, who recently was assigned to detectives and has taken that responsibility over. And finally, in terms of promotions, Chris Olson, who was recently promoted from patrolman to detective and will spend his 2 years in detectives. Additionally, we want to take the time to recognize our employees of the year. First, I want to take a minute and tell you about and then introduce you to Officer Andre Huey. Andre has been with us a little over 5 years. He is exactly whom you hope to hire when you hire a police officer. Uncommonly decent, professional, a guy who you appreciate having on your shift because he's always there to help and make a difference for the people who reside and use our community. This year, 2010's Officer of the Year, Andre Huey. And we have 2 awards, the Civilian of the Year, and this time it's my pleasure to tell you about somebody who has won the award on multiple occasions. Often we hear that that the jobs in the public sector are limited to one function. That's just not the case. It's fun to talk about, but it's not the case. Susie Hebert participates in payroll. She participates in personnel. She assists me in developing the personnels and protocols for our agency. She manages all the payables and receivables that come into us. She does it without complaint, with professionalism, and with an utterly decent aspect about her to everybody who asks her questions all day, every day, with regard to outside details, overtime, vendors, when can we pay this, how come we can't do that. An outstanding employee who works 8 feet from my desk and is there to save me whenever I screw up. Thank you very much to Susie Hebert.
Susie?
Thank you, Sean. Thank you.
And lastly, but not leastly, you'll note the LY on the adverbs, which is exciting grammar.
Nice play.
Yeah, well, for those grammar mavens out in the audience, it's one of those opportunities to kind of say, well, well, well. Lastly, but not leastly, I'd like to introduce the newest member of the Londonderry Police Department. About 2 weeks ago, I asked Dave if we could appoint a chaplain, since we had somebody who had demonstrated an interest. Thankfully for us, he has served 22 years in the United States Marine Corps. He comes to us as our new chaplain. I'd like to introduce you to Jerry Gonsalvo. Jerry.
Welcome aboard, Jerry. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you for this opportunity to introduce those of us who work for you and for the people of this community. I deeply appreciate it, and if I might be excused.
Thank you, sir.
I have
We appreciate you
places
coming
to
in.
which I must repair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Job well done. Thank you. Okay, we have board committee commission updates, environmental baseline study. Bob Malloy, would you be so kind?
Okay. My name's Bob Malloy. I live at 13 King Charles, and I'm the chair of the Environmental Baseline Study Committee. I thought I would use a couple slides tonight because I think with the exception of Tom and Dave, probably none of you were on the council at the time, and you may or may not know about this committee because it's been inactive for probably the last 5 years. But essentially, back in the 2001 time frame, there was a lot of things happening in Londonderry. And I didn't come up with the idea for this committee, but I just was a worker on the committee, and the people who started the committee bailed out shortly after it was started, so essentially everybody looked to me, and somehow you know, I accepted it at the time. And the idea was that there were things happening in Londonderry, especially the power plant, which was almost polarizing the community, and many people felt that this would have a negative impact on the community, specifically with respect to the environment. And there really was no measure of the environment at the time, and so people felt that it would be worth investing some funds that were essentially requested at town meeting and approved for establishing the state of the environment. And you add on top of the power plant the widening of 93, the expansion of the airport, at the time the north-south runway, and then shortly thereafter the east-west, essentially allowing for larger aircraft, and then residential and industrial growth that was, especially residential growth, pretty significant at the time. So essentially the committee prioritized its use of this funding, and prioritized first with well water, surface water, then ambient noise, and then air quality. Those are the 4 environmental factors that this committee studied. The status of the committee now, I would say, is in sort of what I call sleep mode. I don't know what the official term is, but 5 or 6 years ago we did come back to the council and sort of indicate that our mission had been completed, but the decision was made to keep the council or the committee active. But we really don't meet on a regular basis. We don't have a mission. We don't have a budget. I serve as the chair. Bruce Burgess is the vice chair. We have a couple volunteers. Over the time that we've been inactive, the volunteers have dropped off the list because we really don't have a mission. John Vogel has been extremely helpful in kind of helping us with some mapping, and Rick Rumba from the New Hampshire DES has been a very strong advocate for our program back in the time frame when we were actively doing things. Russ Legoo was very helpful. He offered up his company, EnviroSense, as sort of a staging area for a lot of our work that we did, picking up of samples and things like that. The laboratory work was done by ChemServe Labs, and the noise testing was done by a contractor that the town had used on several occasions, Ascentech Corporation. So that's essentially a summary of where we are today. I can tell you, I just have one slide on each program that I can fill you in on or not fill you in on. It's up to you.
If you want to just give us a broad
Yeah, just a couple.
30,000?
Yeah.
Sure.
So essentially, in the well water testing program, we tested a couple hundred wells selected at random throughout the town. Bottom line is, for inorganic contaminants, the most significant problem that the town would have is arsenic. It's not surprising. It's in about 35% of the wells. 20% of the wells were above what would be the EPA recommended limit. So that's 1 in 5 that, people probably should be concerned with that and have certainly their water checked for arsenic. In terms of organics, MTBE, which is a gasoline additive, that's very pervasive in the environment. It really doesn't sort of decompose. So once it's in there, it stays there. And that was in about 10% of the wells tested, and 3 of them at a pretty high level. And the state did follow up on that, and several of the residences actually wound up being put on town water. This is the kind of mapping that John does for us. Those water droplets indicate the homes where well water was tested. So we got pretty good coverage. You don't see much in the northwest corner, but that's because there aren't many homes in the northwest corner. And other sort of areas are covered with city water, so most people don't use wells. Surface water quality, bottom line on this is we did about 6 rounds of tests at different conditions, low water, high water, after rainstorms. The water quality in Londonderry is excellent. I mean, it's almost something should be advertised. The surface water quality, with the exception of some, I guess, fertilizer pollution was sort of the main issue that we would see. But generally speaking, it was in pretty good shape. None of those tests involved capital equipment. It was all just contract testing. We did want the New Hampshire DES to put an air monitoring station in Londonderry, and they said, look, and we lobbied hard, and they said, look, we have one in Manchester, we have one in Nashua, we really can't justify putting one in Londonderry. We only have, I think, maybe 20 in the state. And that was fine. We did buy an air monitor ourselves with town funds. The state did install it at the North Fire. They did maintain it. They did send reports to us, so essentially, other than the capital purchase, it didn't cost us anything. But the good news is, 2 years later, after we did that, the EPA had a federal program where they were going to put what they call a superstation in every state of the country, but only one. And the New Hampshire DES called us because they had such a good relationship working with us that they said, we would like to site this in Londonderry. And it took a while to get the details worked out. We tried to put it on private property in the north end of town. Didn't work out due to easement issues and liability issues. And ultimately, I just turned it over to John, and he started working with them in the school district, and they wound up siting that superstation, which is the most sophisticated air monitoring station in the state, at the Moose Hill School. So a lot of places actually really don't like to have these things for unknown reasons. They're afraid of them. They don't know what they are. I mean, it's simply a monitoring station. And so they were really happy with that cooperation. And the last slide was the noise study. We did a series of these, but we had a unique opportunity because the power plant wasn't operational and the airport was. And then there was a time where the airport 1735 runway was shut down. So that means all the northbound landings, weren't happening. And so we did another study at that time. And we also did a study along the I-93 corridor, because once that thing goes to 4 lanes, you'll never get the 2-lane, noise pattern back again. So that seemed to make sense. So I think we executed I myself am ambivalent to the whole issue. Having a gas-fired power plant doesn't really bother me in town, but I think we did a good job of implementing the testing programs based on what was decided by the voters at town meeting, and essentially that was our job, I think. And I guess the data's there, the reports are there, and if somebody wants to do this again in the future to determine if these things have had an impact on the environment, they could do it. That's essentially my sort of quick overview of what was about a 3-year project.
Well, we appreciate you coming in. Do you have any questions for Bob from the council? Absolutely. Tom?
Thanks, Bob. I was one of the original founders, I guess, of this effort that happened February of 2001, I think, was the birthing exercise. I remember part of the issue was the concern in town with, like you mentioned, the rapid development, both industrial, transportation networks, and with residential homes. And the thought was, gee, if our environment starts to suffer because of this, how will we ever be able to make the causes of the pollution either clean it up or compensate the community for what they've done? So that was one of the basic tenets of the whole effort, was to establish a baseline, hence the name of the effort, so that in 2001, at least we knew where we stood as a community from a baseline standpoint. And anything that happens down the road, there's a change in the environment, then we at least know where we started. And so that's now part of the historical record. And I think it's something that future generations will look you up, Bob, and thank you for leading this. You shown a lot of leadership over the years in this, so I thank you for it.
Thank you.
Well said. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you. Joe?
Thank you. Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you very much, Bob.
Yep.
Appreciate your efforts. Mr. Jonkus from the Budget Committee, would you join us?
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. As the Town Council is well aware, the Budget Committee is composed of 7 residents elected at large for 3 staggered year terms. The Budget Committee is an advisory committee and responsible to provide fiscal oversight on behalf of the taxpayers for both the school district and the town operating budgets. Following following each budget season that includes numerous public meetings, workshops, and hearings, the Budget Committee presents its budget recommendations to both the school board and the Town Council, as well as recommendations for proposed warrant articles, bonds, collective bargaining agreements, and the maintenance trust funds. Now, looking back a little bit, as has occurred in prior years, the fiscal 2012 budget process began last summer on the on-site visit, with on-site visits to several locations throughout the town, including the new Northwest Fire Station that was still under construction at the time of our visit, as well as the Pettingill Road location that included a review of anticipated economic development that is projected. We also toured the Central Fire Station and the Department of Public Works facility off of High Range Road, and paid specific attention to given various equipment and improvements that felt that were needed. Once again, the Budget Committee anticipates a condensed budget process looking forward for both the town and the school district, and plans to be engaged with all public budget meetings, workshops, and hearings. Moreover, the Budget Committee plans to conduct its reviews on both budgets in a top-down, Pareto-like manner that has proven to be a sound business-like approach that has been more effective and efficient, resulting in more productive discussions with both the school district staff and board members, as well as the town management and staff, town council, among the Budget Committee members themselves, as well as any taxpayers that happen to be attending. This year it is anticipated to be another challenging year in terms of budget reviews and subsequent Budget Committee recommendations to the town and school district. This is due in part by budget challenges associated with the potential shortfalls in state funding, as well as economic conditions that, although are getting better in terms of GDP growth and job creation, but it still appears to be sluggish. Thus, the Budget Committee anticipates challenges for and against numerous budget items in this forthcoming year's budget process as a direct result of the economic conditions, as well as some residual budget concerns that emerged over this past year's process. The real challenge is not only to maintain a stable tax bill, but how we get there, the process itself. Moreover, it is also a significant challenge to get more community involvement earlier in the process during the fall at the budget meetings, workshops, and hearings. That is when people of the community have a chance to become much more informed of the details, as well as affect change before the final proposed budgets are put before the voters, both in the ballot box, the town meeting, or the deliberative session. As you are well aware, the challenge for the town is to continue to maintain a relatively stable tax bill while maintaining the level of services taxpayers have come to enjoy and frankly expect. All the while, services for calls for both the police and fire continue to rise. And with winters like this past one, DPW equipment and labor is challenged in terms of capacity and maintenance, not to mention what it does to the roads, on the roads that we drive on every day. Given all this, however, working with the town manager, the town council, its staff for the town, the Budget Committee plans to continue to challenge open positions. We continue to challenge departmental changes, any major capital expenditures, or equipment upgrades, etc. The nutshell here is we're going to challenge it and make sure that any need is justified. We want to justify it while we as a community continue to provide for the services, expectations of the taxpayers, voters, and the community as a whole. Just to give you a little bit of background and summary on the school side, just real brief, the school district continues its cost savings and cost avoidance programs, including but not limited to such budget impacting items as energy conservation and special needs education using in-house capabilities versus tuitioning out these required special services at a significantly higher cost that it would cost if they had to tuition them out. This continues to be achieved concurrently with superior academic results at a cost per student that is below state average. As of the submission date for this report, the Budget Committee stands ready to assist the school district and the town as we continue to keep a close watch on Concord to understand and prepare contingencies to address any state funding shortfalls that may materialize. As you are well aware, the situation regarding the state budget and subsequent funding issues are likely to result. To what extent is the question, but it is a fluid situation, and we will not know what we will need to address in terms of these potential funding shortfalls until the state budget is finalized in June. And at this point in time, any estimates or figures provided are little more than speculation. In closing, I'd like to remind the council and the public that the Budget Committee meetings are always open to the public. Typically, our regular meetings are held on the fourth Thursday of each month at 7 p.m. at the Londonderry Town Hall in this very Moose Hill conference room. Usually, the exception to that is during the months of May through July, and that's typically because there's usually not enough activity going on during this period, so we kind of take a break. We're more than happy to meet if the need arises, and with the potential shortfalls coming up, there may be some meetings. We will see. Another exception is on the opposite end of the scale, and that's during the budget season in the months of November, December, and January, where we often meet, in addition to the fourth Thursday of every month, we often meet multiple times a week because we attend all various meetings, hearings, and workshops for both town council, the school board, as well as all the budget meetings themselves. And of course, just a reminder to the public that additionally, the meetings are televised and recorded for viewing on the local access cable TV station. Usually, I believe it's channel 22. Also, the Budget Committee not only continues to welcome the public to attend, this year, we would like to take some extra effort to reach out to the community and drive this message home. We would like to see more participation of the public from the public earlier in the process at these meetings, workshops, and hearings, where their suggestions, comments, and input can help affect any changes towards what they would like to see. Every citizen has the right to know how our taxes are used, so together we can make informed decisions regarding that use. And by the way, our next Budget Committee meeting is scheduled for August 25th, and the Budget Committee anticipates tours of the town and school district to also commence once again this August. This report is respectfully submitted by the Londonderry Budget Committee by yours truly, Todd Jonkus, the chairman of the Budget Committee. Thank you, and I'll be happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Thanks, Todd. Thank you, Todd. Appreciate you coming in.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Okay, I've got a couple of things to bring up in public comment. First one is regarding the open space task force. They're having a special public hearing, public meeting on Wednesday, May 25th here in the Moose Hill Chambers at 7 p.m. The goal is to get as many residents as possible to attend and give their views on the open space land preservation in town. There will be a brief summary of what task force has done to date, but the majority of the evening will be dedicated to allowing the public to have themselves heard, to ask questions, share their ideas, etc. The task force would really appreciate the council's help in bringing this forward, and that's what we're trying to do tonight, to make sure that people are active in this and have a say in it. And that'll be your opportunity to address some of those with the task force. And lastly, we have, 15 days left till the end of May. Please make sure that you get your dogs registered. You can do it online. We have, if you have any questions as far as hardships or anything, you want to contact the town clerk at 432-1100 and follow the, I think it's what, extension what? 195? Okay, extension 195 will take you to the town clerks. So it's owners over 65 or $2 for the first dog. Regular fees apply for additional dogs. $6.50 for dogs that are spayed or neutered, or a dog less than 7 months old, or a puppy. $9 for dogs that are not spayed or neutered. And then after, if you are past the date of May 31st, there'll be $25 civil forfeiture fees in mid-June once they come back to the council, as far as the people that haven't paid the fees. So please get that done, and if you have any questions, please contact the town clerk. Okay, any other residents out there have any questions for public comment? Okay. Public comment, we're moving to our public hearing. Can I get a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We are now in public hearing. Resolution 2011-04. Can I get someone to
I got it.
review it? Thanks.
A resolution 2011-04, resolution relative to the discontinuance of highway, portion of Pond Road. First reading, March 21st, 2011. Second reading, public hearing, April 4th, 2011, and continued public hearing to April 18th, 2011, and now 5/16/2011. Whereas the Town Council, in accordance with RSA 231:43, has received a petition to completely discontinue and relinquish all public interest in a portion of Class 6 highway known as Scobie Pond Road between Woods Avenue and Brewster Road, conveyed by deed without covenants, whatever interest the town may have, if any, in Scobie Pond Road, to the abutters, with each abutter being given that portion of Scobie Pond Road abutting their property to the center line of Scobie Pond Road. And whereas the matter of discontinuing a highway under RSA 231:43 is within the authority of the Town Council, and whereas the aforementioned highway was discontinued subject to gates and bars by voters at the 1932 town meeting. Now therefore be it resolved by the Londonderry Town Council that the discontinuance of a portion of the Scobie Pond Road, as shown on the map entitled Approximate Location Class 6 Road, to be abandoned, tax map 16, lots 38, 52, 53, 60-3, 81, 98, 99, 100, prepared by Jones and Beach Engineering Incorporated, Stratham, New Hampshire, dated March 2nd, 2011, is hereby approved, and that the town convey by deed without covenants whatever interest the town may have, if any, in Scobie Pond Road to the abutters, with each abutter being given that portion of Scobie Pond Road abutting their property to the center line of Scobie Pond Road, subject to the condition that the trustees of the Kenneth A. Lorden Trust shall indemnify and hold harmless the town of Londonderry from any claims arising from the town council's decision to discontinue said portion of Scobie Pond Road. The trustees may, in its sole and absolute discretion, withdraw this petition, even if granted by the town of Londonderry, in the event an abutter seeks damages under RSA 213:48, in which case the trustees shall pay any legal fees incurred by the town of Londonderry up to the date the trustees give notice of the trustees' withdrawal of the petition.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Your floor. So, where are we at with this resolution?
Good evening. For the record, my name is Jonathan Ring from Jones & Beach Engineers, and with us tonight is Ann Crotty, representing Chinberg Builders. Eric Chinberg and Dave Losey are here as well, in case you have questions of them. We were last here, as you may remember, on April 18th, and at that time, the council requested that we provide some plans, which we've done. We've got 2 survey plans, one showing the discontinuance, which is 445 feet and 663 hundredths of a feet as measured along the center line. At that time, we had said it was approximately 400. Well, it's 445.63 feet. And those survey plans are in the package. We also have an easement plan showing the 20-foot access easement for Public Service of New Hampshire. We have submitted as well support of petition documents from John Weigler and Jenny Schneider at Public Service of New Hampshire. And we have also submitted the deeds for the conveyance of the old Class 6 road to Waste Management, Inc. of New Hampshire, and also to the Lorden Family Trust, as well as a draft deed for the 20-foot easement for public service. So we believe that these are all of the pieces that the council had requested at our last meeting. And we also have a petition resolution, which I believe is next on the agenda for a private sewer utility, so it'll still be relative to this project, but I think that's everything on the Class 6 road, unless...
I think that addresses some of the issues that were raised last meeting.
And you worked with Bart to...
Right.
Okay. Council?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay. We appreciate you going back and doing the diligence. I'd just like to bring it out to the public for any questions in regards to this. Step right up. Please give your name and address.
Good evening. Charles DeRossi, Old Dairy Road, Londonderry. From what I understand, we're here to give away our rights to a certain section of that Scobie Pond Road. Is that correct? That's what you're deciding tonight, whether you're going to do it or not?
Yes.
Okay. Originally, this was all brought up as the whole road being discontinued because it was supposed to be detrimental to the town owning it and therefore giving it up. And I guess in 1932, they gave it away anyways. But since then, the council's probably aware that it is useful, where some residents came in and use it to access their property. Therefore, to butcher out a 445-foot section and then make a contiguous road into 2 roads with dead ends, in the future, if someone wants to develop the backland there, now you've created an issue that's possibly a detriment to the town. So I don't see where it's benefiting us as residents. And being a voting resident, I consider myself a stockholder, where you're the board of directors and you do with the will of the town and what's the best for the town. I tried to see what the benefits are to the town for doing this. And if there are any, I guess there'd be even more benefits to discontinue the whole road. So I think the question should be either the whole road goes or none. Because by just hacking out a center part of it and creating the 2 dead ends, I think in the future we're creating more issues, which were created when they had Camco go in and close off the loop that shut off access to the backland that originally created the request for changing the zoning to the property, which made this whole mess to begin with. So unless they were thinking about this road possibly serving that in the past. That's why they did the Campco thing. I'm not sure. And I don't claim to know everything, and if someone could enlighten me as to the benefit of doing this to me as a stockholder of the town, I'd appreciate it. But the only benefit I could see is just that it would benefit a private entity, that neither the landowner or the developer have any vested interest in the town. They're not residents. They don't have any rights to vote here. The development that it would allow, I did pros and cons. I have no pros that I can come up with. There's questions being brought up when the whole project is developed that it might suck the water dry. Even the town's water people have raised questions on that. And there's just, safety issues with the extra traffic and all that. So that, to me, in itself, is giving up this piece of land not something that's to the good of the town. So therefore, I would urge the town councilors, there's not a lot of people that are here, a lot of people that do agree with me feel that the elected body they elected is going to do the right thing for them, and that's why they're not here, which is kind of a lame reason, because you guys want them to be here to guide you. But unfortunately, in a perfect world, you guys would know what all your constituents want, and they don't have to be here. But unfortunately, I'm here because that doesn't always work. But I'd really urge the council to think about this. I would like to at least tell the town or tell me what the benefits are to us by giving up this section. Because again, if there's benefits to give up this 445-foot section, there's got to be more to give up the whole road. And if we're not, then that means we're making a road that has benefit into less benefit by creating the two dead ends. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. DeRossi. It's kind of a good point. So let's take it back to the council. I don't see anybody else out there that wants to speak to it.
I have a question today. Yes, Mr. Director, what is the benefit to the town? First of all, do we even have any rights? Because the resolution says subject to whatever rights we have, if any.
Well, to the extent that we had rights to an old road that was discontinued about 80 years ago, subject to gates and bars, and so that's the language which Bart has suggested, because it's difficult to identify with a degree of precision what rights we actually have in a road being that old. And if you recall, the original request was to abandon the entire road, and based upon testimony received from the abutters and other people in the area, they suggested you only abandon that small section and leave the rest of the right-of-way there as a road subject to gates and bars. That's why the recommendation is to only abandon that 400-plus feet section of road on the north end of the old right-of-way.
I guess because I can see Mr. DeRossi's point. You're taking a road and basically cutting it in half, for the lack of a better description, and you got two halves of, you get a third of a road and a third of a road and a third of a road. What's the benefit to the town? Because the people that did raise an issue with it are not going to be able to access both sides of the road because there's going to be a development there now. Or if this approves, there's a potential for a development there now. So I'm just kind of thinking out loud of, is it the right thing to do to just allow it?
I have a question for the applicant. What's the need that you have for this abandonment?
Well, as Mr. Karen mentioned, the original request was to abandon 3,000 feet of that road, I think. And in response to issues raised, and our purpose was that, in our view, the 3,000 feet much of it crossed the Lorden property and would provide an encumbrance for us as we go to phase 3 or 4 in the future. Now, since then, we've scaled it back to just this 445-foot section in response to the comments received from the public and from council at previous meetings. So we still would like to see this section of the road taken out. We do have a sewer line that runs through that location, and maybe an access issue that would go through there. But the remainder of the road would stay in place, and in our view, it's still subject to whatever private rights there might be for abutters who are going out there on four-wheelers or, and public service certainly would be coming in from the south end, the southeast end, and crossing into their easement for maintenance. And that's the reason, obviously, for the 20-foot access easement.
Do you have intention in further phases of development of looking at discontinuing additional portions of the road?
Not at this time, based on the opposition, if you will, from the previous hearings here at Town Council. If everybody thought it was a great idea, yes. There is a portion of it that does cross our cul-de-sac for Phase 4, and we'd like to see that abandoned, but we've scaled that back in response to the public criticism and comment from the council. So we don't have a plan to come back to do that. It may happen 2, 3, 4 years from now. We don't know. But we're not, it's not in our agenda to orchestrate that.
No,
All right.
Actually, I have a quick question.
Sure, Joe. Go ahead.
You said you had letters from the Public Service Department, and we don't have them on our file. Do you have copies there? Or?
I have.
You do? Okay.
I don't think I do, but
That's
I know
okay.
Mr.
I have
Dave
it.
and
That's
Mr.
fine.
Karen.
And I might have missed it when I was looking for it. The other part of the question is, you said you're taking part of the road. Is it going to be built through half of the road, or is it going to be still a road? I mean, the rights, as far as the rights go. I mean, do you have plans that actually going to be building on part of that road? So it's going to be much less wide for people to drive in and out, or?
Are you talking about the portion that we're seeking to permanently discontinue, or the rest of the road?
Well,
I'm not sure
answer
which
both.
part of the road you're talking about.
Answer both for me.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
Eric Chinberg from Chinberg Builders. We're using the term road to describe this legally defined space, which is basically goes through the woods. There's driveways and old paths through portions of it, but in the 80 years since it's been abandoned, it's not like anybody traverses that whole length.
We had testimony previously that people drive in and out of there, so.
They can get through certain portions, but
Four-wheel drive vehicles, they can go
Yeah,
in
okay.
to do hunting of turkey or whatever they were doing. And public service goes in on four-wheel drive vehicles to access their easement, to do maintenance out there. But you can't, I couldn't drive it in my Volkswagen.
I'd also just like to point out that at the public hearings when this was first brought up were abutters and interested parties to the abandoned road would come speak. There were 2 people who had concerns, and we've addressed both of their concerns, so I don't think that the cutting that little piece out is affecting anybody's ability to access their land.
Okay. Thank you. All right, is that,
I'm satisfied with that.
yeah,
I have no other questions.
you have another one?
No, I don't.
Okay, anything else? All right, let's bring it to a vote. Okay, all those in favor of Resolution 2011-04, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries 3-2 in favor. Chair votes in the negative. Okay, that is done. Okay.
The dirt.
Do we have 10? All right. Can someone read up on Resolution
Sure.
2011-09?
Resolution 2011-09, a resolution relative to an agreement for sewer services relative to the Lorden Commons subdivision. First reading, May 16th, 2011. Whereas the planning board recently granted conditional approval to the Lorden Commons subdivision, and whereas it is in the public interest that said subdivision be serviced by municipal sewer, and whereas the town and the applicant have agreed that the extension of the municipal sewer into the development shall remain privately owned and maintained, now therefore be it resolved that the Londonderry Town Council, by the Londonderry Town Council, that the town manager is hereby authorized to execute all necessary documents to grant access to the municipal sewer system to CBI and Lorden Commons Sewer Company, LLC, pursuant to the terms and conditions of an agreement as set forth below. So moved.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, so this is a resolution pertaining to, do we have anybody here from staff that can review this?
Well, John can provide some backup for us, but under agreement between the town and the applicant, this development will be served by municipal sewer. However, the sewers within the property will remain private to be maintained by either a common sewer company or the developer, but not the town. This is the agreement which for the most part, paralleled a similar agreement on a development up of, I believe it's Old Dairy Road, John, and it's been reviewed by Public Works. It's been negotiated between our town council and the council for Chimberg Builders. And if you have any questions regarding any specifics in the agreement, I'm sure John can provide the answers for that for us.
I had a question. So once this, assuming this was to be approved and the development is underway, if I understand it, the network, the sewer network within the development is private. And if there's an issue, a sewer break or clog or whatever, the company, CBI and Lorden Common Sewer Company, goes forward and makes that repair or that adjustment, whatever needs to happen. Now, what provision will there be to give us some assurance that should any of these entities cease to exist or go out of business, what is the repair plan for, going on for, can't say that word in perpetuity. Is there a bond, or is there some surety, or are you going to turn it over to the residents? How does that work?
Are you talking to me or to Mr. Trotter?
To whoever can answer.
Whoever can best answer that question.
Well, the short answer is that, yes, the Lorden Commons sewer utility will be turned over to the homeowners. So they will be responsible, and there's a collection process, there's some accounting that takes place with respect to that, and there's a maintenance agreement with Sherborne Consolidated or an heir of that company in the future that would go in to make repairs as time goes. So the homeowners in that development will have the rights and the ownership of this entity as time goes forward.
So that'll be a homeowners association, if you will?
Just as it would be with a condominium association, yes.
All right, and make this question for John. In that type of agreement, so are the sewer lines considered private property?
Yes, it would be.
Are they is it taxable? Is it a taxable utility, or?
Again, it would be considered private as far as taxability. I don't know, Tom, but again, and that's why we've told them again that they need to go through the New Hampshire Public Utilities Commission to formulate a public utility, and that way they'll have to provide all the financial backings and.
Because we assess taxes to the power company for the transmission lines that run through the community.
Yeah, Tom, it's similar, as I believe, and I'll have to confirm with Karen tomorrow. It's similar to a condominium association where the town does not separately assess any common area, but the value of that common area is essentially divided into each of the unit owners' values based upon the market value. It'd be the same concept for the roads and the utilities in that area.
Where does the sewage go?
Will be pumped to Manchester. Be pumped to a gravity line on Liberty Drive.
So they'll be getting fees per month from that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Correct. They'll get user fees from the town, and then they'll establish their own fees as well for that utility.
Do we have other arrangements like this in
The other one, Tom, is Mill Pond, Lamontang's development off of Old Dairy Road, Hunter Mill Way, in that area.
And do we have any, what been our record, or are there any lessons learned that we can take out of that we can apply here?
Again, that one is very similar to this, where again, that utility up there is operated by Bodwell Waste. And again, Bodwell, it's a little different because again, that was a little more complicated because the tie-in point was not in sync with our intermunicipal agreement with the city of Manchester. So there was a metering station involved with that, and then there was even more fees because again, that connection where it flows into Manchester, Bodwell was put on the hook for any future improvements for all that portion of the interceptor going down Cohas Brook and all that.
Now this series of pipes are for the first phase of this development. Was it 50 units? Is that what? Now Are they sized for 50, or are they sized for anticipation of something greater than 50?
For the most part, again, the first 50 units, I believe, John, 20 of them end up going to the pump station.
Yeah,
Thereabouts. Yeah. So right now, the first phase of it is 50 units. Of those 50 units, 20 of it will flow to a pump station that'll pump it back up to the high point and flow gravity. The remaining 30 units flow gravity automatically. And I believe, again, preliminarily, John, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think future phases all flows gravity.
Well, phase 2 would probably have a pump station as well.
Okay.
But the pipes, after we get into the gravity section, have been sized depth-wise and size-wise to accommodate future phases of the development, if they take place. So it is sized to accommodate the future phases. And they would be bound by this same resolution.
Dave, I have a question. If I don't pay my sewer bill, eventually does it become a lien on my real estate?
It does.
Okay. Now, if we're having an agreement with Lord and Common Sewer Company and some portion of the residents there don't pay their bill, how do we lien Lord and Common Sewer Company LLC?
I believe that the terminology, we're leaning that.
We do not lien in this particular example. That's why in Section 8, the group is required to post a letter of credit in the amount of $9,600, which essentially will be 2 quarterly payments to ensure that there's money available to pay the sewer fees. But there is no liening involved, you're right.
Okay. That was my concern. Okay.
Is this basically, they're asking for our approval to put the pipes in the ground to do this?
Well, they're asking for your approval so they can represent to the PUC that they have the town's approval to extend municipal sewer as part of a private utility.
Okay. All right. Any other council? Public? Okay. Seeing none? All right, resolution 2011-09. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Chair votes affirmative, 5-0. Motion passes. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Receipt and expenditure of unanticipated funds. Dave? Would that be you?
Be me to start, and then John will take over again. As I'm sure you're all aware, one of the major concerns with respect to expanding and widening I-93 was the impact of additional impervious surfaces and asphalt on the Beaverbrook watershed regarding winter maintenance. And so as part of the project, the state has raised or budgeted funds to assist the towns with the reduction of the use of chlorides and other contaminants. And the grant agreement, which you're being asked to consider this evening, would provide up to a $200,000 grant, which is matched 20% by the town, so it's $160,000 by the state and $40,000 by the town to buy equipment to help us more efficiently winter maintain our roads. And John can speak to the equipment which the department plans upon purchasing with these funds.
I believe back in February, Janos had come and presented the salt reduction plan that's been approved, that staff put together and has been approved both by DOT, DES, and the Federal Highway Administration. In this first round of the plan, what we propose to do is again purchase a new 6-wheel dump truck, a speed control unit for the spreading unit itself, ground temperature sensors, electronic hydraulic valves, pre-wetting equipment, and then we also have monies for equipment installations. Again, this is all, again, as Dave indicated, again, it's to hopefully reduce salt usage, again, within the 93, or the Beaverbrook watershed. We have 4 plow routes within the watershed, and this is to augment our equipment and get at least one of the plow routes on board with trying to achieve the reduction in salt usage.
Cool. All right, so we're looking for a council motion, or are we looking for just straw poll?
Well, under state law, you have to have a public hearing to take input into the receipt of unanticipated expenses, and then we would ask the council vote to approve the receipt of the grant from NHDOT.
Okay, Joe, you had a question?
Yeah, just,
Thanks, Dave.
what is the expense, how much is the expense for this piece of equipment?
Again, we're eligible up to, the grant was $200,000. So again, our portion would be responsible, or again, this first phase of it, we're looking for $140,000 from DOT, or from the grant itself, as we've put together the plan and it's been approved by all the
So
parties.
we've been granted up to 200,000 and we're spending 140 of that.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Okay, any other questions from the council?
No.
Okay. All right, so, Dave, what's the motion need to be? Basically to,
If you can take public comment or input.
sure, that's fine. Any public comment? Todd?
Do we, Todd Jonkis, Londonderry Budget Committee, do we understand, have we identified what the expenditure is for and there's a need?
Oh, yeah, again, the expenditure, like I said, is for, again, the six-wheel dump, the speed control units, the hydraulics,
Oh, perfect.
the equipment, yeah.
Sorry, I missed that.
It's really, it's for equipment, Todd.
I know there's a need, I just didn't know if you identified what it was for.
Oh,
I didn't hear that, but-
we had to. We had to identify the need. They would have never given us the money.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I missed that part.
Like you.
Okay, any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. So Dave, this motion is to expend $140,000.
It's recommended that the council motion and second and approve a motion to accept grant funds from the New Hampshire Department of Transportation for chloride reduction in the I-93 Watersheds Municipal Program.
So moved.
Second.
John was the motion, Tom Freeland was the second. Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Chair votes affirmative. Okay, all set, John. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ordinance 2011-03, relative to the amendment of the municipal code. Can I get somebody to read that?
Sure.
Maybe we want to, if I can make a suggestion, we might want to waive reading on the entire ordinance, just on the front page, you just might want to read.
Sure.
Yep.
Ordinance 2011-03, an amendment to the Municipal Code, Title I, Chapters 2 through 23 and 25 through 26. Whereas Section 310 of the Town Charter requires a decennial revision or codification of the ordinances of the town, and whereas the Town Council established an FY11 goal to review all town regulations and procedures in an effort to eliminate inefficient processes or regulations, and whereas most of the current chapters in Title I have been reviewed for recommended edits, now therefore be it ordained by the Town Council of the Town of Londonderry that the Municipal Code of the Town of Londonderry, Title I, General Code, Chapters 2 through 23 and 25 through 26, is hereby amended pursuant to the attached summary. So moved.
Okay, I get a motion. Can I get a second? Second. Motion and a second. Discussion. Do you want to have Dave give us a brief overview? Go ahead. Okay.
Well, this is a public hearing, so I suggest that you go through and briefly discuss each chapter, and then request any public input, and then maybe we can move on from there.
Okay.
It looks lengthy, but actually it's not. Hopefully it won't be.
All right, chapter 1. Do you want to go through it, or do you want me to do it?
Yeah, well, if I can just bring highlights to your attention. Chapter 1 is the town charter, and there are no changes recommended since town meeting has to approve any changes to the charter, and the council's not authorized to perform that act. Chapter 2 is ordinances. The town charter requires a first read and then a public hearing, whereby the municipal code used to allow the council with an opportunity to waive the second reading. And so since that's inconsistent with the charter, that really is a legal provision. That's been removed from there. And also recommend eliminate use of the legislative committee, which we have never convened, at least in the last 10 years. And so those are the recommended changes for Title II.
Okay, do we have any others in here?
Public comment.
Okay, we need to take public comment on each one?
It's up to your call.
Okay, that's fine. Is there any comments on this? Okay, seeing none. Dave, Tom?
Dave, what percentage of our documents are we looking at tonight? Is this close to all of them?
No, there are six titles. This is title number 1.
So this is just a general code?
Right. Title 2 or 3 is traffic. 1 is zoning, which I will not be bringing to the council because the council amends that every time you have a recommendation coming up from the planning board. And most of the titles are not as lengthy as Title 1, with the exception of Title 6, which is all the financial policies and all the other policies under which staff operates is approved by the council.
Okay, so that's the only real thing we're going over tonight is just Title 1, and this is all Title 1?
That's correct.
All right. So there really weren't any significant changes?
Not in, well, there are a few changes in Chapter 2, as I just mentioned. Chapters 3 and 4 are the town seal and town motto and song. We've obviously not amended that.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 5 is...
We have a town song.
We do, and I can't sing it, nor will I.
We have a town
Please
manager,
don't.
hum a few bars.
It was actually passed by the 1977 town meeting. It was written by Ann Currier. So. Again, Chapter 5, town council meetings would require the council establish rules for its proceedings. And another issue, to make it consistent with state law, is there wasn't a requirement that any petition signatories had to be registered voters. And so we've recommended those become registered voters. Chapter 6 fiscal year, there was a requirement, or actually an option in the municipal code, that if the town council or town meeting didn't act upon my recommended budget becomes a law, which, again, is not in concert with the town charter or state law, so that's been removed. And it also recognizes that the capital improvements program is a planning board responsibility, not one from the town council in accordance with state law. Public hearings, there were different thresholds for notice requirements. We've recommending making those standard at 7 days for all hearings. Chapter 8 deals with removal of municipal officials, and Bart reviewed this for us and concurs that under state law there's very limited authority to remove municipal officials, so it's been rewritten to recognize that limited authority. Chapter 9 is execution of official documents. There were no changes recommended. Chapter 10 is indemnification of employees and officers for both actions and civil rights actions. And so we're recommending aligning language with RSA 31, 105, and 106, which are statutes designed specifically for those two purposes. Chapter 10 is municipal tax liens and minor textual changes. Chapter 12 is street acceptance, and there were significant changes to align with the subdivision regulations. The Department of Community Development submitted those recommendations. Also, some significant changes in Chapter 13, naming of streets, renumbering, and we had that aligned with the ordinance 2008-08, which the council approved 3 years ago when we began the process with our street naming committee of renaming conflicting street names. So essentially that one the council essentially took up action on back in 2008. Chapter 14, structures within the right-of-way. There were significant changes recommended by the Department of Public Works to streamline the process and have a clear understanding of what would be an impediment to the town's right-of-way. Chapter 15, loitering. There were no changes recommended by the police department. Chapter 16 is littering and public cleanliness, and the enforcement authority has been transferred to the police department. And we tried to align all our penalties with RSA 676-17, which is the penalty clause for violation of municipal code, which can be up to $275 a day. Obviously, up to a judge if it progresses that far. Chapter 17 is driveway permits and construction, and again, there's been some significant changes to align with our operating procedure as worked out between the Department of Public Works and the Planning Board. significantly that the authority for review is transferred from the building inspector to the Department of Public Works. Article 18, work conducted within town right-of-way. It was a significant rewrite, but only minor changes, again aligning with current process. Chapter 19, yard sales. The initial recommendation is minor changes, elimination of permit process, or staff recommends repeal of this chapter. We've not found that yard sale activity is problematic in the community. There are other ways of dealing with those that may become problematic, and it's one of those issues that I think when Tom raised in his mind last year of getting rid of inefficient and bureaucratic processes, this one probably falls within that category. So the recommendation is to repeal the ordinance for yard sales. Chapter 20 is solicitation, sale, and public property. We're going to consolidate the permission granted in my office, which is consistent with state law under the town manager's responsibility and also for the town charter. Chapter 21, fireworks. The statutory references, authority, and penalties were updated by the fire chief to be in compliance with state statute. Chapter 22, town common. Again, it's clarified that the supervision rests with my office with input from elected and appointed officials. Park and recreation areas, Chapter 23, just aligning the statutory penalties. Chapter 24, the cable television is a lengthy chapter, still in the review by the cable director. And there are no recommended changes on the last two chapters, being Chapter 25, prepayment of taxes, which is pretty much guided by state statute, and Chapter 26, which is prohibited activities on town property, which I believe involves no smoke within 20 feet of any kind of gated entrance. So those are the recommended changes that we would encourage the council to take public comment on and enact this evening.
Okay. Do we have any comments from the public on what's been presented by Dave? Okay. Bring it back to the council. Any questions?
No.
Thanks, Dave. It's a lot of tedious but good work. I would also, I think I mentioned before, but be on the lookout for any ordinances that target certain segments of the community unfairly, or like may apply. This particular ordinance applies to, people who work in the Public Works Department but nobody else, or this particular ordinance applies to people in the north end of town but not the south end of town, or people who work for the school department but not for the town. So I'd be on the lookout for those as well as you're updating these. Okay. I think our ordinances need to be fair and apply equally across all citizens without targeting anybody favorably or unfavorably.
What about dormant ordinances? I mean, do we have any laying out there for, like, don't put the horse on the hitching post?
Well, the yard sale one was one of those. I think.
They're supposed to all be included in the entire municipal code, titles 1 through 6.
Okay.
So that essentially is what we viewed as our operating rules and procedures. If outside of that, then we don't enforce it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Dave? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor of ordinance 2011-03, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Chair votes affirmative. Ordinance 2011-03, 5-0. Okay, that is, I believe, it for public hearing. Can I get a motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of closing public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0, and we are now out of public hearing. All right, old business. Dave, do you want to update us on the FY12 FIT goals?
Sure. What staff did is we took the council's individual goals and we tried to put those in the goals that are more closely aligned into specific objectives. And so what we're presenting this evening is for the council consideration to adopt 4 specific objectives, and some have multiple goals. Objective 1 is cost-effective government to achieve greater value at lowest cost. And that goes through a series of 7 goals, including prepare the FY13 budget in accordance with town charter, Continue to review all town regs and policies. Continue to reevaluate the feasibility of shared service between the town and school. Look at the any synergies with the library and cable divisions. And another one is to explore all opportunities to enhance non-property tax revenues. Those are just several of the 7 goals we're recommending the council look at. Objective 2 is to accelerate economic development efforts to drive tax revenue, thereby reducing tax burden while preserving Londonderry's quality of life, which will include a continuation of Andre's monthly updates. To expand the monthly update to include a status report on the Woodblock Commons project, which is a significant project in the community. Develop goal measurements for economic development recruitment efforts, and reestablish the Economic Development Committee for the purpose of supporting economic growth and prosperity in Londonderry. Objective 3 is to enhance communications with the community. Goal 1 is to work with the planning board to ensure that a system is in place to maximize communications and participation in the multi-year planning and development of Woodblock Commons, which again is a goal set forth in the previous objective. And to frequently update the web pages of all committees, commissions, and boards to ensure that the public has current information on services, activities, offerings, and responsibilities. And the last objective, which we gleaned out of the information developed by the councilors, is develop policy guidance with the Conservation Commission regarding acquisition of conservation land in order to meet the council's expectations when acquisition proposals are presented to the council in accordance with RSA 36A4. So if the council would review these, and it doesn't have to be this evening, but at some point, once they're adopted by the council, it becomes essentially staff's directive, for, in addition to our other statutory responsibilities, a directive for setting forth and achieving these objectives for FY12 beginning July 1st.
Okay.
Well, just a comment. You certainly cleaned those up well. That's great. Thank you.
Tom?
Under Objective 3, Goal 2, Dave, could you, there was some email traffic today, I think initiated by Mr. Douglas. Could you take a look at that suggestion for the RSS feeds under that particular goal?
Sure.
See if that makes sense.
John? Do you have anything?
I'm all set.
Joe? No?
I'm fine.
Andre, you had a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Andre Guerin, Community Development Director. I'd like to suggest under Objective 2, Goal number 3, it has developed goal measurement for economic development recruitment efforts. I was wondering if we can just expand that to be develop a goal of measurement for economic development, business retention and expansion, and recruitment efforts. Because obviously if we're successful in retaining our businesses and getting them to expand within town, it's just as important as trying to recruit new businesses to town.
Support that.
That was mine, and I'm fine with that. Sure.
That's fine. Yeah, okay. John, you good with that?
I guess the only thing I'd ask is there anything you want to eliminate at first glance? I mean, like, for example, I think that the town and school working together thing we've had for like 4 or 5 years, and I think that ship has sailed.
Yeah, I kind of. Actually, there was a question I wanted to ask, going back to the budget committee, but we can get to that later. So do you think we should just take that off there, or?
I'm asking, I'm not
I
telling.
feel pretty strongly about it. I think, you know, as a new council, I'd just like to try to explore that avenue. Maybe I'll get, you know, the same feedback you guys have gotten in the past, but I'd like to try to explore it.
Well, I can tell you as the school board liaison, they're not interested. So, whatever you guys want to do.
Well, maybe we can have a joint meeting with the budget committee and the council. Play that
sure. Yeah, I think that's a very important one to keep on.
All right, anyway. Well, I guess the consensus is to leave it there for now, John. But I understand your point.
I don't know if there's any other ones anybody feels that, you know, I mean, you can only really accomplish a couple of things a year.
Right.
So, I mean,
Right.
but if you're reading through them, just, you know.
Try and come up with a consensus. All right. Okay, well, consensus is Dave has them out there. How about we look to, we can get back to Dave with comments, concerns, or things you want to get rid of, and then just address Dave, and then come our next meeting, maybe we can go for an adoption then. Does that work for the council? Okay?
That's fine.
All right. Okay, great. So Dave, that's what we're gonna do.
Okay.
All right. Okay, that's the end of old business. New business. Order 2011-06 relative to the distribution of conservation funds to purchase a conservation easement at 587 Mammoth Road. I believe Mr. Speltz is going to present.
Do we have to read it first?
Read it, order.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I got it
My
for you.
bad. Yep, thank you.
Order 2011-06, in order relative to the distribution of conservation funds to purchase a conservation easement, first reading 05/16/2011. Whereas the town of Londonderry has appropriated funds for the open space preservation program to be placed in the open space fund, and whereas the provisions of RSA 36A-4 allow the Conservation Commission to receive gifts of money and property and to purchase property, said property and gifts to be managed and controlled by the Commission, and whereas the Commission may, under the provisions of said state law, acquire in the name of the town and subject to the approval of the governing body, any property to be conserved and utilized as open space, and shall manage and control the same. Now therefore be it ordered by the town, Londonderry Town Council, that the town treasurer is hereby authorized as directed by the Conservation Commission to expand from the open space fund a sum not to exceed $219,000 to purchase a conservation easement on 20 plus or minus acres of map lot 17-10, 587 Mammoth Road, from Everett D. and Charlotte F. Merrill. So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Looking for a presentation. Mike, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, I'm Mike Speltz, Londonderry Conservation Commission, and resident at 18 Sugar Plum Lane. As you probably noted in the reading, this is basically in addition to an existing conservation easement. I think Dave provided you with a conservation easement deed, and because the original Merrill easement on the Merrill Orchard was funded with Farm and Ranch Land Protection Program money, they have unique requirements that have to go in the deed that relate to their federal role. This addition didn't qualify for that grant because it's forested, and so rather than, we couldn't just add this land to the existing easement, so we'll have a separate easement. They'll be held like the first one by the Rockham County Conservation District. And it's basically just the exact same easement with the federal language stripped out, so that for the family and for the easement holder, they don't have to be confused about, okay, where am I standing and what are the rules? They'll be the same all the way across the orchard. So here's an aerial view. Is there anything we could do with the lights that'll make this easier to see for people at home? So the
If I plant the lights, does he get the right to?
Obvious. That's
That
the
works.
works.
That's about as good as we're gonna get.
Unless you want all of them off.
Oh, the other one, I think the other slides are gonna be easier for you to see. Do you have them on your screens?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So unfortunately for the people at home, what we're looking at is an aerial view. You might be able to see the vague red outline of the property that we're talking about. The bottom of the screen, you can see the rows of apple trees that are on the orchard. And at the top right corner, you'll see there's a little piece that's out of the proposed easement because there's an existing house on it. Basically, because of a death that occurred in the Merrill family, there was a dividing up of an existing lot, and this piece that we're looking at here is what came to the family that has the orchard, and so this is the one that they have offered an easement for the town to purchase. It is very heavily forested. It has not really been cut by anybody other than Mother Nature, and that was in the 1938 hurricane. So it's a lot of pretty old trees on the property. This is a topo map of the property. Here you can see that we're right on Mammoth Road. And for the folks at home, recall that at this point in Mammoth Road, Route 28 has diverged and is just to the east of this. So this is what some people call Old Mammoth Road, but according to Dick and Agnes, this is in fact Mammoth Road. And I'll show you a little bit of picture of the true Old Mammoth Road. The property slopes up very steeply to the southwest, and there is a flat area right along Mammoth Road, and there's actually a little wet area that extends about 300 feet in that flat area where you don't see any contour lines. This is oh, okay, good. I got one here too. Thanks. I'm afraid of taking out Tom and Joe's eyes if I use the pointer.
Look good.
So what we've done here is zoomed way out so that the parcel we're talking about is right there in the middle again. You can see it. And the color coding on this map is from the New Hampshire's Wildlife Action Plan that's put together by Fish and Game and has been approved at the federal level. So on this map, the pink area that you see just south of the airport over here is what's called best in state habitat. So it's the top 15% of that type of habitat anywhere in the state. The green is best in bioregion, which is, again, the top 15% or so of particular habitat type in our bioregion, which is the sort of the coastal lowland and hills. So from pretty much from Concord over to the seacoast. And then the ochre or gold, whatever color that is, that our property falls in is called supporting landscape. And you can see that they've built that up around the higher value landscape, the green and the pink, so that they can preserve the quality of that best in bioregion or best in state habitat over the long term. This is a map of, I'll start with the map on the left first, and so we got almost all of Londonderry on this map. So you can see the bounds of Londonderry there, and then our property is right there. And this is a map of Appalachian oak pine habitat. Now, you might say, well, I've seen a lot of oak and pine trees growing together, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's oak pine Appalachian habitat, which tends to be on drier sites, rockier sites, and is in fact at the very northern range of that habitat. New Hampshire doesn't have too much of it. So that's why I included the map on the right-hand side of the whole state of New Hampshire. And if you look down, you'll see that almost all of this type of habitat occurs in the southeast part of the state. And Londonderry has more than its fair share. The biggest chunk is occurring in the Musquash, which is the area that we've already preserved. A lot of the remaining forested area of Londonderry is the hemlock, hardwood, pine habitat, which is a lot more common and includes both oak and pine, but it's this drier habitat and the creatures associated with it that make this somewhat unique. It's been a priority of the New Hampshire state agencies to protect this type of habitat. This map is from our own town GIS website, and in it, the green areas you see, this is the Edgell easement. Mrs. Edgell lives right up here in Manchester, but owns all this land. This is the existing Merrill Orchard here. So the green is land that's already been conserved. The gray colored land is the green infrastructure that was developed by the 2006 Open Space Task Force. This infrastructure is under review, but based on the work that the Open Space Task Force has done to date, this part of it is not going to change. So the reason I show this is to show you that the farm and this land that we're talking about here, which I don't have it circled separately, but it's this area right in here is part of the green infrastructure. And the reason it's particularly valuable is there's a large area of high-quality resources up in here that goes into Manchester. And then down here, you have the area that leads down into the Little Cohos and all of the acquisitions that the state did in conjunction with the airport access road. So the orchard that we have under easement and this piece here are key to getting a link to including these two larger blocks that have that together. Some pictures, again, unfortunately, you probably can't see them that well at home, but just to show you, this is taken fairly near the high ground on the property, and you can see that it's quite rocky. This area is dry. And if you notice the trees, even though there's been no cutting in here for 80 years, the trees are widely spaced because there's no water flowing down to them from any place else. And again, these rocky habitats are pretty unusual across the state, so it's another value-added feature. And you see that there really is some good timber. Most of these trees that we're looking at here are oak. There's not enough water here to support the pine, and you can see they've been well pruned and good valuable lumber on this property. This is the old Mammoth Road. If you look carefully, you can see stone walls running down either side of the picture, here on one side and this on the other side. This used to be Mammoth Road. This was the stagecoach road that you would take if you were riding with a team of horses from Boston up to toward Montreal, or at least to Concord. And excuse me, the road was later moved, and that's when it became Mammoth Road. The people that didn't want, they thought that what we now call Mammoth Road was too big, and so the term Mammoth Road is actually an insult. It's meant to be derogatory, that why would you want to build such a big road? Which is a little ironic since we're going to 8 lanes on I-93 now. But this is the road that Mammoth Road replaced, right here. And a beautiful set of stone walls that will preserve that for all time. And so I think it's great that we pick up this bit of our cultural heritage, historical heritage, along with the natural resources on the property. Here we are looking, almost standing in the old road again, and there's a stone wall that runs across here that separates the addition to the easement from the apple orchard itself, is what you see through the trees there. A little bit lower in the property, you'll see, we're getting some more pine coming into the mix. We had the property appraised by Kevin McManus, who is a well-qualified conservation easement appraiser, works out of, I think, Bow, New Hampshire. The actual acreage is 21.54, I think. I'm sorry, 21.54, so rounds to 22. It's a complicated appraisal because he had to consider that fact there was a house on this property along with the property itself. So he had to basically do 3 appraisals. He had to appraise the house, he had to appraise the whole thing without any restrictions on it, and then the value of the land that we are buying, obviously buying an easement on. We're not buying an easement on the house or the 2.2 acres that the house sits on. That was that little dog-eared cutout on the northeast corner. So he established the total value at $505,000, and the value that the land, basically the development rights of the 21 acres, is worth at $286,000 after the easement is in place, meaning that the easement itself took $219,000 worth of value out of the property, and that's what we're compensating the owners for. I put down here assumed house lots 3 That's, you say, why could there only be 3 house lots and 22 acres? There's a road that what the FedEx facility is on that runs across the top of the hill, but the judgment was made that in this market, it would simply not be economical to spend the money to build a road, run it up a fairly steep hill, and create a lot of lots, and then not be able to sell them off. Because of the overhang of foreclosed homes right now, it's just not a good time to be in the subdivision business. I don't quite know how the folks that are operating in town now are doing it. Maybe they know something we don't know, but the appraiser has only given him credit for 1 to 3 house lots. He did his appraisal not based on a theoretical build-out, but on simply a comparison of other lots of the 20-acre range that sold for development and subdivision. And his comparables indicate that the value of this land was about $12,000 an acre. Basically what he said was, the only thing that's economical to do here is to put houses on the existing road frontage on Mammoth Road. That to go into a more aggressive development just wouldn't pay. I'm sure you'd have an interesting conversation with Eric Chinberg, who was just here before me. But that was the position he took. I'm sure the Merrill family were a little disappointed, but they want to go forward with this and add this to their easement. And that's my last slide. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, bring it back to the council.
So, Mike, the only question I would have, or at least maybe I should say it would be the first question I have, why aren't we waiting for the Open Space Task Force Committee, report that we asked for before we bought any other additional land?
Well, this has been in train, actually, I think before the task force even began their work. But as I said, the task force has at least preliminarily identified that the green infrastructure that we're looking to protect does include this.
This land hasn't been touched in 80 years.
Right, it's been in the Merrill family.
Right, and it's almost unbuildable.
I wouldn't agree with that, but...
There's a giant wetland across the front of it. It's all upland. We're talking about a lot of money to develop it. I'm just asking why we don't wait for the Open Space Task Force Committee to finish their report, figure out what pieces of land we should buy in town, and then do an assessment based on that, if this is one of them that we should buy or not.
Well, we're not suggesting that we buy this. We're only suggesting that we purchase a conservation easement on it.
We're going to spend $219,000, okay, of the taxpayers' money, without the report we asked for a year ago, to decide whether or not $219,000 should be spent on a different piece of property. Does the report say we should buy this piece of property?
No, we're not that far along.
That's the only reason I'm asking is that I thought the council said, all right, hold on, put the brakes on, let's do this report, and then we'll figure out what to buy. I mean, so what I'm trying to figure out is there an urgency here to buy this piece of property? Do the Merrills have another buyer? Is there a reason why we should buy it right now? We shouldn't wait for the report. We shouldn't do that due diligence. I'm just trying to understand.
We are concluding a process that began a long time ago, and we're just continuing a conversation that we had with the Merrill family and completing a purchase and sale that we have negotiated with them completely independent of the Open Space Task Force.
So you're asking me to vote for something because we've been negotiating a long time, and I shouldn't wait for the report to find out if it's the best way to spend our money based on the study we're doing? Because that's what you're asking me to do.
I cannot speak for the Open Space Task Force report because it doesn't exist. But I can tell you that this land is going to be recommended for protection. The family has made it available now. And in fact, there's no other piece of land that has been made available right now, at least that I know of. So we should go forward with this.
Okay.
Well,
Mr. Merrill is here tonight, and other members of the Conservation Commission. Maybe we should hear. I'd like to hear from from them what their thoughts are and what their intentions are with the property.
Okay. Council okay with that?
It's fine.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Ken Merrill. I'm representing my aunt and uncle, Charlotte and Everett. I've been the one that's primarily moved this process along. To answer Mr. Farrell's question, after they acquired this property, we hadn't intended to bring it for conservation easement as fast as we did, but there was changes in their health status. They're both elderly. We had to bring it. I brought it to the commission. It's not the commission coming to us, because we felt we needed to settle questions for estate purposes, financial planning, all that. Because they are elderly, after they acquired it, both of them have had changes in their health status.
So the urgency is of a family nature, and that you want to settle the estate so they can settle their affairs.
More or less, yes.
Okay, that's a reasonable reason to bring something to us.
It wasn't our intention when the property was passed to them at that time to ask for the conservation easement. We had already discussed it and decided that at some point in the future, but their health status has changed our urgency, and we are the ones that approached the Conservation Commission because we're running out of time.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. I hope you understand why I asked the questions the way I did, because I don't have that information.
Right.
So
Well,
thank you for coming forward, and I really appreciate you sharing that.
I will be glad to answer any questions that any of you have about the property, about our motives. I'm open to any of your questions.
Okay, thank you for stepping forward. If you want to just sit there, that's fine. Do you want to ask questions?
In a different market, what would you think would be the what would that piece of property sustain in terms of development? In terms of, we're talking about now, because if it's a down market, it'll only support three houses along the current road network in a more aggressive, excuse me, in a more aggressive development posture. What would that piece of property support?
I've been told as many as 6 houses, but our greater concern and why we ended up acquiring the property was not so much the housing, but what do I want to say? The threat of the destruction of the southwest corner, which is called Merrill's Hill. There's been a lot of activity in mining and quarrying it, hauling it away. Right now, the Highland Trading, they're blasting out the western part, bringing it down for construction of I-93. We acquired the property, we acquired the crest of the hill to preserve the hill.
I can tell you the assessor concurs with the 6 lots, because I asked him.
In the event that the town does not move forward with the easement, what are you considering as a family as alternatives to settle the estate, if that's the term we're using?
It's hard to tell with elderly people if nursing homes get involved and such. It completely changes plans and what we would have in mind. Our intention as a family would be to keep it and preserve it as long as possible. But as I say, with uncertainties in the future, you never know what will happen.
With the town's purchase of an easement, what would your intention be for continued use or farming or logging or
well,
recreation, or what would the continued use?
I've looked at that property, and Mr. Speltz's assessment that it has the oak, correct?
Appalachian oak pine?
Appalachian oak pine kind of has thrown me for a loop there. I really have to bring in a forester to assess that. when I look at that property, I see two major parts of wetland, which obviously have to be preserved. The crest of the hill, which needs to be preserved. I wouldn't sell it to be blasted out. There's probably 5 to 9 acres that I see that have potential for farmland or for that type of activity. The actual slope of the hill makes it an excellent spot for farmland, for growing fruit trees, especially peach trees and such. It does have some farmland potential. Obviously, the old stagecoach road would be preserved. Once you look at the parts that either have to be preserved because of slope, the crest of the hill or the stagecoach, there's probably 5 to 9 acres that could be used for farmland.
In a preserved state, if the town were to own the easement, would the property be available for passive recreation?
We currently allow people to hunt there. We've had a lot of turkey hunters there. The crest of the hill has a unique view that very few places in Londonderry have. It looks down into the airport. It looks out onto the Enconunix. I think it would be an excellent place for possibly the Conservation Commission and ourselves to maybe develop a trail to the top of the hill from Mammoth Road. I think with the lands that the Merrill family owns and maybe future conservation, the possibility exists of including that parcel and maybe a trail that would go all the way from the Manchester line all the way to Kitty Hawk, Grenier Field Road. The Merrill family is committed to conservation, and we would like to develop a lot of the lands we have there for either conservation use or public use. Trails aren't out of the question.
Mike, have we intersected with Trailways Committee on that subject at all on this property?
No, not on this particular project. I will add that the proposed easement does provide that it won't be a matter of goodwill on Merrill's part. They will be required to not post against pedestrian access. So the town will have public access to the forested portion of the property, which of course is right now all of the property. We'll always give them an exception for cropland during production or pasture land when livestock is present or for public health or safety concerns. But other than that, one of the things we're buying is public access to this property, which we don't have. The problem with your question to this great farmer is that he assumes that he'll always own the land and do the right thing by it. And if that were the case, we wouldn't need to buy this easement from him. But the problem is we don't know what's going to happen 50 years from now, and somebody else could have it, and the situation could change entirely.
I think, I know that the Trailways group has expressed increased interest in developing and furthering the trail network in town, either for walking trails or for biking. So I think it would, if we were to move forward with this, that would be certainly a good location that we ought for that, and we ought to encourage the Trailways group to get involved, especially along that old Mammoth Road, that historic stretch in there. That would seem to me to be a perfect spot for either for a walking or maybe a mountain biking trail.
Okay, Joe, and then Tom.
Yeah, just a quick question. Thank you for coming, Mr. Merrill. Some nice pictures of Old Mammoth Road. I just had a question about the purchase conservation easement. If for some reason this easement does not go through tonight, would you entertain a purchase outright of the land from the Conservation Committee?
That's hard for me to say. That's very new to me. We possibly would if we received assurances that the land would be preserved.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Tom?
Mr. Merrill, is the land all woods now, or do you farm it now, or any portion of it? Or do you have plans to farm any portion of it?
My aunt and uncle acquired the property a little more than a year ago. The people who owned it before that, it came into an estate because of a death, were cousins of the family. So it's been in one side of the family or the other for many years. Since we've only had the deed for a year, we've been assessing the property, I've been looking at it. As I say, I see possibly 5 to 9 acres that could be used for farming, but it hasn't been part of the farm. We'd like to preserve that property, maybe add some farming use to it. Yes, it's been too soon to move forward. Something like deciding to make it into farmland would be a long-term project, because that's not something you can rush into. And as I say, the oak pine habitat kind of has thrown us for a loop. If this is a rare and habitat that needs protection, it would really change our thoughts about cutting it down and making it into farmland. I think we have to get a forester in there, and his recommendation will make a big difference in how we proceed.
And you had indicated that, if I'm correct, if I heard you correctly, that the current actual owners of the property have some estate issues, or they're elderly and...
They're elderly, yes.
And perhaps looking to protect against nursing home issues or something like that?
Well, when you get into your 80s and you're not in good health,
right,
that's always a possibility that exists.
I understand. So they would retain the remainder interest in the property if the easement went through?
Yes.
Okay.
But I will also say that myself and my brothers would be the heirs to them.
Right, but the current heirs would be...
Yes, but if any of you have elderly relatives in nursing homes, if you've ever...
10 years, Mr. Merrill. My mother's been in one.
Then you know the uncertainty you go through.
And I know how much it costs.
Yeah, exactly. And you can work all your life and save and have property and such, and all that can be quickly eaten up by nursing home care.
And Mr. Merrill, if you were willing to entertain a sale of the entire property outright, with your concerns about conservation and all that, but also if you wanted to farm portions of it, you could do that, couldn't you, with a nominal lease on the property? $1 a year?
If I understand your question, the answer would be yes.
Yeah. See, my concern, quite frankly, is the purchase of an easement versus the outright purchase of the property. My concern is it ties us to the fortunes of the remainder owners and what happens to them, and whatever actions befall your family are now intertwined with the town's. And what I'm trying to avoid is a situation where that's the case, where it frees the town to act. And I'm not suggesting by any means that they act against your concerns. If you wanted to farm the land, I would have no problem with you farming the land for a nominal lease. I just don't feel that, especially given what you've said about...
Let me go back to a little bit of the history of this. When the land first became available to us, it was still tied up in the Smith estate.
Mm-hmm.
The Smith estate, the parcel was originally 40 acres. It was supposed to be divided between a son and a daughter. We ended up acquiring the parcel that the daughter owned because that abuts the farm We wanted to preserve the backlands of the farm and protect our ability to farm. Originally, we tried to buy the 20 acres that we're trying to put under the conservation easement outright. Because of the terms of the present easement on the farm and because of difficulties the Smith family was having in subdividing the property, it ended up being a lot line adjustment and rolling into the lot and house lot that was owned by Everett and Charlotte. It wasn't what we started out to do, it was what we were legally able to do. Having it pinned to that house lot presents a little more of a problem than what you're saying as an outright sale. We would have to, again, subdivide off the house lot before we consider that.
No, and I entirely understand about subdividing the house portion of it, and I'm only, and assuming that occurs, my concern for the town, and frankly from your point of view, is for you to have, in a sense, freedom, and the town to have freedom. And I don't mean that the town would, eventually sell the land or do anything but conserve it, because it would be in the hands of the title would be in the Conservation Commission. But my concern is, especially where as you indicated, nursing home and Medicaid leases, liens, excuse me, is that that liability could befall on this property, including a sale of it, and then giving out a portion back to the town of its valuation.
It's a possibility, but it's not likely.
Well, but I think it's my responsibility to ensure,
well,
to minimize that.
I believe as a lawyer you probably know more about it than I do.
And all I'm suggesting is that there's an option here for perhaps purchasing the land outright, if that's what the council wishes to do, and giving you a lease to farm.
A purchase of the land outright would probably cost you more than the $219,000 because there is a significant amount of retained equity in that 20 acres that the owners will still have. The $219,000 is nowhere near the purchase price of the property. If you were to pursue buying it, you would end up paying more because the retained equity would be included in the purchase price too.
I think the valuation was about 280 or something like that for the retained equity.
It was
minus the house. I understand the house. Minus the 2.5 or 3 acres for the house. I understand that.
By purchasing just the conservation easement at $219,000, you're paying less. And I think in the long run, there will be no difference.
But my problem with that is that in the future, something could happen requiring the town to pay to get the portion that your family retained away from a creditor. That's my concern. That's my concern with all these easements. I'm not interested in purchasing an easement.
Well, you're also forgetting that there's the equity in the 2-acre house lot.
No, I'm not, because I'm assuming you're going to exclude that.
Which means that the actual 22.5 acres has an assessed value of $505,000.
No, I guess I'm not making myself clear. I'm excluding that from the calculation, the 2.5.
But I'm saying there's more assets than just the conservation area, which makes losing the conservation area unlikely.
Well, it doesn't if it's tied, if the underlying ownership is tied to people who have creditors, and creditors who have assets that can be attached, which the remainder interest certainly could be.
It's always a possibility, but the probability is slim.
Well, again, I'm not so sure that it's a slim possibility. It may be one that's far off in the future, but I'm not sure that it's a slim possibility. And I think it's incumbent upon the people here to financially secure the town's purchasing.
That, number one, I think from just a conservation standpoint, we could accomplish our purpose either way, through an easement or through a fee purchase. But some thing to remember is that if you purchase the land, you take it off the tax rolls. If you leave it,
It's forest. I'm not sure it's giving us a lot of money, Mike.
no, but if he farms it, it's going to go up in value too. But the more important point is that the easement is binding on the owners, heirs, successors, and assigns. So it could, if it were to happen that the Shady Grove Savings Bank lent them money to pay the nursing home bills, and they eventually took that land, it would you're implying that a mortgage.
I'm not implying a mortgage. I'm talking about a federal government Medicaid lien.
I mean, like for a road construction or something?
Well, they said that the owners in fee have a property interest. They will have a retained interest in the property. If they were to enter a nursing home and incur Medicaid costs of something on the order of $10,000 to $12,000 per month, that's going to be, at their death, payable as a lien on the property.
Right, but
and my concern, Mike, is that the federal government is going to step in and say, we want to sell this asset.
Right.
But what is it? It's a portion of an interest in the property. Well, okay, sell the property and we'll figure out the Merrill portion may be 20% and the Londonderry's is 80%. And we'll sell the property to a commercial developer and we'll give you 80 cents on the dollar.
But
and
in
with all due respect, Mike, that's the reality that you face.
In reality, it won't be conservation then.
Mike.
I have to respectfully disagree.
Mike, I have a mother in assisted living for 10 years. I'm $850,000 into it of my father's estate. They take everything.
Believe me, I know, because I have a father also, and I went through the same thing.
You know, Mr. Merrill has made a very compelling argument. I'm really happy he came up here because, I was thinking differently until he came up here and told me what was going on.
But please understand that this developer that got the property because of the federal sale is still bound by the easement.
No, he's not, Mike. He's not. He's not. They're selling the property subject to a federal lien, okay? And they're going to give you cash for the portion of your asset. Or maybe they file bankruptcy. I think the bankruptcy courts have supremacy over your lien, your easement, Mike. With all due respect, Mike, I don't think you know.
So hold on. Okay. Mr. Merrill had a comment.
There's, to just consider this one asset singularly is not correct. I mean, there's more assets than just this involved. There's also things like long-term care insurance involved and such.
All I'm suggesting is a purchase versus an easement so that your family's issues are no longer a town's issue. I'm not suggesting that we can't purchase things. I just don't believe purchasing an easement is a proper thing. And the idea that we're purchasing an easement to avoid maintenance costs, as you said, this lot hasn't been seen anything since 1938. There's been nothing done to it. What's the cost of that?
Okay. So Tom, you have a question?
As my understanding, help me understand, Mike, that when we purchase an easement, we're not actually going to be part owners of the property. We don't own any part of it.
That's correct.
That what we're doing is we're compensating the property owner for creating an easement that is favorable to the intentions that we want. So when the property is whatever liquidated by whatever manner, whether it's taken over by a creditor, whether it's taken over by the government or whatever, that easement travels with that new ownership.
Right.
So for example, if the Merrills pass away and their estate is sold to John Smith from Massachusetts, that easement is now, that property is still encumbered by that easement that John Smith now owns. Likewise, if Barack Obama buys the property as the federal government, he also is encumbered by that easement if the federal government owns it as well.
Right.
Isn't that correct interpretation?
That's correct. The only distinction is that if John Smith in Massachusetts buys it, he doesn't have eminent domain, whereas Brock could exercise eminent domain. If he really felt there needed to be a monument to the current Congress on that hill, and he could make the case that the public needed that and jump all the eminent domain hurdles, he could do that. But that's not what the situation is that we're worried about here. This is strictly a fiduciary responsibility. The Medicare invests money in these people, and then they pass and they try to recover as much as they can. And yes, they could take that land and sell it for what it's worth, but what it's worth is 20 acres with a conservation easement on it.
Right, so and that easement is not liquidated with the transfer to new ownership. It continues
travels with the land.
Continues, right, okay.
Mr. Harrell, go ahead.
The easements have the wording in it that this is an easement forever. Forever is a long time. The only way it can be broken is by eminent domain by a government entity. So if you purchase the easement, it remains on the property forever, whoever the owner is, unless broken for eminent domain, and then you recoup your money because they have to pay for the property and the easement.
And that payment is allocated in proportion to the interests. So there'd be another appraisal, and presumably based on these numbers, we'd get something like 80–90% of it.
The easement specifically states that the easement holders get their proportionate share back if it's ever taken by eminent domain.
And I'm suggesting that would also occur if the federal government enforced a lien against the property, or the bankruptcy court took the property.
But you still have the conservation easement on the property. The conservation
I
easement.
agree that the town would get back a portion of its value, but it wouldn't have the land. It would be sold to creditors.
You would still have the easement. You would still have the
I don't
original
agree, sir.
intent
I just
of
don't agree.
of
I
the
think
easement.
The law is
You come
different.
up. Just have your name and address, please.
Perhaps we could ask the town manager to pose that question to Bart, so that we can get,
Sure.
we might as well get an answer. It's a good question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm Bob Mel, 569 member of Londonderry. I'm part of the Mel family. In New Hampshire law, there is a provision when a conservation easement is executed, the development rights under New Hampshire law is extinguished for all time. I do not know the RA, but it disappears once those documents are signed, so it never can be brought back.
It's for that reason that you cannot put an easement on a piece of land that is encumbered by a mortgage, because then you could have that very situation.
Well, no, if you put an easement on covered land with a mortgage, Mike, it depends when you put the mortgage on. If it's behind the easement, you're
Right.
behind.
Right, but if it's prior, I'm sorry, I meant
Right.
a prior mortgage.
There's no mortgage on the property.
Well, if you put an easement on land with an existing mortgage on it, the mortgage takes precedence.
Right, so you cannot put a conservation easement on a land with a prior mortgage.
Right.
So does this property have a prior mortgage on it?
There is no mortgage on it.
And we ran the title check to.
And if you put the easement on before any liens are assessed to it, then the conservation easement takes precedence.
Now, if I may, Mr. Chairman, if, as an option, I think one of the suggestions is to have the points of law reviewed by our lawyer. The other question is an option, and I guess it's a question for the Merrills, and don't want to put you on the spot. Maybe you want to go with a way to think about this. But if the town, as a second option, decided to offer you a purchase outright for the property, would you consider that? And also, at what value would you consider that? And maybe that's something you want to go think about. But
It's something new to me. I'd say we possibly would consider it, but we would prefer to go with the easement, and the value you would pay as I said before, would be considerably more than the 219,000.
Mr. Chairman, what I would suggest is that we table this for at least one meeting, give our attorney a chance to go back and give us some assurance to the legal issues. Secondly, give the Merrills an opportunity to think about what a couple of councilors have suggested, and also a chance to confer with the Conservation Commission if that's a recommendation as an option that the Commission would consider as well. I don't know if that's one meeting or 2 meetings worth of tabling, but
My only concern is to John's point. While I appreciate the Merrill situation, having just dealt with that for the last 3 years until we lost my mother-in-law last September, it is very complicated, and there is a lot of headaches along with it, as you all know. I was really hoping that we could wait until we had the report back from the Open Space Task Force before we moved forward with any decisions on any properties. And that's originally what I think our intent was to get that back and then go from there with a decision on what we're going to do considering going forward.
I agree, and I agree with that thought process. Tonight, we've been presented, however, with a special sense of urgency from the family, and I wonder, maybe to help mitigate that, Mike, is it reasonable to go to the Open Space Task Force and inquire, could they fast track this piece of land to see if it would meet the criteria, and will it rise to the surface of recommended properties to purchase, and maybe, kind of take this as a special case rather than waiting for the entire report to see where it fits in the context of that?
Well, as I said, it meets the criteria, but what I don't know how to say where it falls in the priority list ahead of doing the priority list. We could just get a sort of an advisory opinion from them. I mean, they are strictly a recommendation.
Are you at the point now where you have a priority list?
We're in the process of developing it now. That John Vogel is doing a straw man for us that we will be considering at our June meeting. But I don't anticipate that they'll approve that the first time round. It'll probably be the July meeting before we'd finalize that. As I say, right now that is the only project that we have on our plate, as far as I know, and either in open or executive session, no one else has come to us. So here's an opportunity to conserve land that we have targeted for our open space efforts. I know that Sue probably worries that we have obligations that we're flirting with. What's the word?
No arbitrage
borrowing and getting interest.
Arbitrage.
Arbitrage, yeah, right. So that we do need to.
No arbitrage problem. There's no bond funds in there.
Is that true? Okay, good. So that's not a consideration.
Good.
So, one thing John had mentioned is about, you have the May 25th meeting here at 7 p.m. Is there, we can't, that's like having another public hearing.
Well, there's going to be articles in the paper about it and everything else. Maybe people will come in and express a point of view. I mean, we'll get some sort of feel. I mean, Mr. Merrill has come forward and expressed that he has a need. We may vote up or down, but at least we know why it's here now.
Yeah.
So, and why it's here now. If we can get some sort of public feedback that, hey, it sounds like our lawyer says, okay, these are the issues. Some people come back and say, you know what, we think you ought to buy it. Or they come back and say, you know what, Mr. Merrill, really sorry, but we ought to buy the Grange. I mean, I don't know, I'm making this stuff up. But at least we get some additional information. And then when we vote, like we try to do every time, have all the information. Having not known what Mr. Merrill came up here and said tonight, I would have tabled this until I got the Open Space Committee report.
That's how.
But I'm willing to listen to other things now because, longstanding member of the community has expressed a need, so we should listen.
Go ahead.
Deb Levens, Conservation Commission, 105 Gilchrist Road. I don't really remember that. I know that we've always supported the movement forward on the open space master plans, task force, whatever you want to call it. We know we need it. That's Conservation Commission has been behind that. I don't know that we ever specifically got the message that we were stopped moving forward on projects, that we were not going to be doing anything until after that report was in.
Specifically, Deb, we did say that.
You did?
We did, as a
Okay.
council, made the decision when we did the task force that we wanted to have a decision on where we're going for future. What does the townspeople want to spend it on? What direction they want to go? Do we want to keep spending? All those questions were part of the task force. And specifically, I do remember that we did say that we wanted to take and find out the opinion of the public first before we go and make any more purchases. And the people really did speak at the last time we had a bond, they said no. So if you look at the benchmark, that's where the benchmark was the last time we did it, when it came up before the vote for the last open space bond.
Oh, right. Yes,
So
definitely.
that- I
That's
guess, so what I'm saying,
we've moved forward in good faith. That's all I'm saying with this project.
Respectfully, what I'm saying is, like John said, I understand exactly the Merrill situation. So there are a lot of mitigating factors that this is on the table right now, and I understand that. But, I as a fiduciary too, as one fiduciary, I kind of look at it too as we do really need to get a little bit more in a way of facts. So Tom had made a motion, or I think you were attempting to make a motion that we move this to our next council meeting. Is that enough time to get opinions from Bart? So what questions do we have so far, Dave, as far as for Bart?
Well, essentially, it's the impact of any kind of federal or Medicare liens on property in which we hold an easement interest, and what happens to our easement interest, and does that in any way obviate or eliminate our easement placed upon the property?
Okay. The other question, and I don't know if 2 weeks is long enough, is as a second option for an outright purchase, do we need to re-intersect with the appraiser to get that recommended price?
I don't think we have one up there.
Or is that what we have good enough?
They're agreeable.
We know that the full value of the 22 acres unencumbered is $505,000. We know that the house lot, which would have to be subdivided off, is $275,000. The difference is $235,000. However, and the appraiser would tell you can't just make that simple math calculation, but because he's done all the homework, he might be able to fairly quickly give us a letter opinion on, what the value would be.
So is 2 weeks long enough to
I
do that?
can't answer
Do you
that.
think we need to wait 2 meetings?
I
For an
can't speak
updated
for
appraisal.
I can suggest another idea, Mr. Chairman, and that is, I think we can solve the Merrill's problem by entering into a purchase sale agreement now that is contingent on the property being in the open space plan. Because and Tom, maybe you can help here, but if we entered into a P&S now that was binding on their heirs, successors, and assigns, then the estate would have to follow through on that P&S obligation. So we could solve the time urgency by doing that, and maybe address John's concern by actually delaying the closing. And hopefully they'd be alive for it. But if they weren't, we could still go through with the project. Delay it until, say, September. We're supposed to get the task force report in July.
So one thing that just kind of went off, a little flag went off my head. So even if they passed, something like this would have had to have been agreed upon years ago. That's what I'm saying. I mean, the government, there's a time period where they can still come back on you if an agreement for something isn't, like, I don't know. Can you explain that?
It's a 3-year look time.
No, I can't explain it, but what I'm saying is you're getting ready to give them funerals. They're nowhere near that point.
Well, you made it sound like their health issues were serious. So
their health is declining.
Okay.
He's trying to plan for the future, and he's trying to set their mind at ease so that they can know everything's going to be okay.
Right.
So it's 3 weeks until our next meeting. I think what I hear everybody asking for is get us some more information and we'll vote.
Yeah.
I mean,
And then hopefully May 25th, maybe there'll be some, maybe some folks will hopefully come out and voice their opinions there. If the task force will entertain people to come forward and speak on it.
Well, I would say the PNS, with the contingency that it's in the task force recommendation, I guess solves that problem about needing a task force recommendation. That's step one. But step two, we've had a couple of councils express an interest in outright purchase, that PNS doesn't help that option. So I guess, I don't know if you could structure a PNS to give you a couple of options. That doesn't.
Well, I think it would make more sense to let the family decide what they want to do, and then we have to go back to the Conservation Commission for a different recommendation.
And I'm not feeling real comfortable about putting them on the spot.
I'm not either. No, I don't think anybody wants to.
I don't think we're trying to.
No. That's not the intent. So at this point, from what I'm hearing from the council, let's get the questions asked that Dave can go to Bart with. Then we can get some answers that way. You can talk with the Merrills, find out what they're comfortable with, if they want to, if they don't want to, and then the next time we reconvene, we'll take all the information and make a decision.
Dave, do we need a motion for that?
Just one other quick question.
No.
Who's going to be the steward on this? Rockingham?
Rockingham County Conservation District.
They would own the easement.
Hold the easement.
Why do we want them to own the easement that we're buying?
They hold it, I'm sorry. Mike's better explaining than I can.
An easement is a perpetual liability. It's not an asset. It requires that you enforce and monitor the easement forever. So to the extent that we can get somebody else to hold our easements, it's a good idea. We will have an executory interest in the easement, so if they were to ever fail in their duties, we would then be able to take the easement and hold it ourselves. But to the extent that we can avoid that, we should, because it's just a cost. At this point, we're paying on most of those costs with volunteer hours, but we are, paying some professional land stewards to monitor some of our easements, because we just can't do it all. Okay. So by getting them to hold the easement, we avoid those future costs. So there's an upfront cost for us.
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that the motion and second be withdrawn and that we move to table this one meeting.
Okay, Tom's got a motion and a second withdrawn.
I'm just suggesting that that's going to be up to whoever made the motion and second to withdraw that.
Margot, who was the original motion and second? Who read the order?
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry.
Oh, I read the
Council,
Did you read it?
Council Green read the first reading, made a motion to adopt, second Council Nolan.
Okay, so I would need Tom to
Withdraw reading.
So I'll withdraw the reading.
I'll withdraw my second.
Okay.
And, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to table this item of new business for one council
If
meeting.
you table it, do you kill it, or why don't we just continue it?
Continue, we don't want to
Do
table.
you want to continue it to the next meeting?
That's what.
But we
tabling-
can't continue it, we just took away the reading of it.
So
Just
that's
table
fine, you can table it.
Just from a procedural standpoint, if we're tabling, you only need Tom to ask to table it. You don't need a second.
Okay, all right, so it's
Council's privilege, right.
council's privilege. So Tom has just exercised that, we'll bring it up in the next meeting, you'll be able to get the questions asked.
That's correct.
Conscom can go back to the Merrills, discuss it, and then we can all come back here on this, whenever it is. It's
June
6:15, June 2nd?
June 2nd.
June 6th.
June
Okay.
6th.
So there we go. Thank you very
June
much.
what?
June 6th.
June 6th. Thank you very much. Thank you to the Merrills.
Thank you,
Yes,
gentlemen.
sir. Yep.
Mr. Merrill,
Yeah, I just
both
wanted
Mr.
to...
Merrills, thank you very much for coming forward. It was a big help.
Yeah, I was just going to say one thing, that this easement has been used in the Matt family, and also Sunnycrest Orchard is part of the Hicks and O'Connor family farms. So this is not the unique situation. We had also done it in November of '05 for the farm and a piece on Page Road on the north side under the power line. So just, the model has been used several times before. And is there other pieces that may have been done that way too, Deb?
Not with the Farmland Protection
Yeah.
Program easements,
Okay.
no.
Yeah, okay, just thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Merrill. Thank you very much. Okay, so moving on to the next, we get staffing levels, Senior Affairs and Finance Administration Department. Dave?
Okay, the first one is Senior Affairs Director. Sarah Landry has taken a position as the Director of Senior Affairs at the Town of Pelham, and we're looking for approval to fill this position as presently authorized at 34 hours per week. She is essentially the sole employee. Occasionally she has assistance from an administrative support, which is funded through ABLE, which is a national program, but she is the only town employee in that department, and it's critical that we fill that position to continue to provide those various services to our seniors.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Council, questions in regards to replacement of Sarah Landry's position and the finance?
Have we advertised that position already?
Yeah, I jumped the gun on that, absolutely.
Yeah, how many applicants did we get?
About 30.
Okay, thank you.
30.
Okay. Any questions?
When do you think we'll have a decision on that? Not to rush or anything, tomorrow?
Well, we closed, the deadline was Friday.
Okay, great.
And so I've got to sit down with the Elder Affairs Committee and go through the resumes, and there's a lot of applicants with direct experience. And again, speaking from experience, I don't know if we're going to run into an issue where some folks who are interested may not be, because it does not provide any benefits in the position. But again, I think we've got a large enough pool where I'm confident we'll be successful recruiting a very qualified replacement director for Sarah.
When's Sarah's last day?
It was Friday as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so Sarah and I met on Friday, and we've got a cadre of people we're working with. We each have individual responsibilities that carry us through until we hire a new director.
Tom?
He answered my question.
Okay.
All set.
Tom? Okay, Dave, it sounds like you have a consensus. John, you okay with it?
I'm on the Elderly Affairs Committee. I guess I'm fine.
Okay. All right, Dave, please move forward. Thank you.
Yeah, the other position involves the town controller, which is part of a finance administration department. We've given you a pretty extensive report, because I know Joe had a question about what each person did in that particular department. So we went through our usual test of identifying all the responsibilities, testing ourselves as to whether we are properly staffed from a benchmarking perspective. To replace this position in its current full-time capacity will give us about 3.8 FTEs in that department, which is below the mean and the average for our comparable communities. That department is responsible for managing over $104 million per year, because, as you know, we are the collection agency for the school as well. It goes through an exhaustive list of all the responsibilities for each of the 4 positions. We have, over the years, looked to enhance efficiencies in our administrative processes. In 2004, we eliminated the town position of IT manager and outsourced that to a private firm, which although we're on a second firm today, we still outsource that responsibility. And in 2007, when there was a vacancy in the General Assistance Administrator, we eliminated that position as well and outsourced that to Community Health Services, which really helped us to leverage the availability of funding, both town and non-town funding, to minimize the general assistance expenditures from the general fund. And in 2011, we had the payroll clerk. We actually reduced that one to 0.8 FTE in recognition of implementation of the department's new software system, which created additional efficiencies. We've also we've had consultant studies in 2008 to see if we can collaborate with the school district in that particular area of finance, HR, and IT. And the consultation came back in that we would not be realizing significant savings or major efficiencies by going along that line. So worked hard in making sure that we're properly staffed but not overstaffed, and trying to gain any efficiencies that we can, which brings us to this position. Although we are requesting and would seek authorization as full-time level, we believe we have an opportunity to retain somebody at a 0.8 FTE who's very experienced for us, who'll be able to interested in working with us and be able to avoid full benefit costs with this particular position. So Our recommendation is that the position be authorized at the current full-time level and to take advantage of the opportunity which apparently exists, which would allow us to fill it at 0.8 FTE. And we're comfortable that this person's qualifications would allow us to realize the same efficiencies and productivity as a new employee coming in at a full-time position.
Nope, that's good. On that end of it, and trying to keep it without benefits. So,
Thank you, Dave, for preparing this. I actually have one question, if you don't mind.
go ahead.
On the chart that says community and then it says finance division staffing, is there any way we could kind of remember to have some sort of dollar amount attached to that? And I'm not really sure what the best way to look at it would be, but maybe an average per measurement per unit, so that you could also line up the dollars spent per unit. That's a good way to look at it as well.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
I understand. We'll make sure it's reflective of any further benchmarking.
Yeah, but this is great. Thank you. This is exactly what I was looking for.
Okay.
Any other council questions?
No.
Okay, Dave? Good to go.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next thing we have is first reading of Resolution 2011-08. Can someone take that?
Actually, I can read it. I got it.
You got it?
Resolution 2011-08, a resolution relative to the discontinuance of a highway, a portion of Kimball Road.
May I interrupt you for a minute, Tom?
Yeah.
Is that an editing error? It's Kelly Road, not
Kelly
Kimball
Road.
Yeah, so all Kimball's just,
Kelly.
they're Kellys. Yeah, I apologize, my error.
First reading as amended, May 16th, 2000.
You want to read that one? It's printed.
Okay.
This way there's no Kellys.
Whereas the Town Council, in accordance with RSA 231:43, has received a petition to discontinue and relinquish all public interest in a portion of a Class 6 highway known as Kelly Road between Tax Map 9, Lot 24, and Tax Map 9, Lot 12A. And whereas the matter of discontinuing a highway under RSA 231:43 is within the authority of the Town Council, and whereas the aforementioned highway was discontinued subject to gates and bars by voters at the 1970 town meeting, now therefore be it resolved by the Londonderry Town Council that the discontinuance of a portion of Kelly Road is shown on the map entitled Kelly Road Discontinuance Plan, Mammoth Road Substation, prepared by T.F. Moran, Inc., Bedford, New Hampshire, dated May 10th, 2011, is hereby approved subject to the condition that the Public Service Company of New Hampshire shall indemnify and hold harmless the town of Londonderry from any claims arising from the town council's decision to discontinue said portion of Kelly Road. So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to send this to a public hearing on 6/6. Council, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I'm not opposed to you, Dave. On this written one, is you Mr. Kimball.
You right there?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion second, and council supports at 5-0 to move to a public hearing on 6/6. Okay, so that's it for new business and old business. Now we're moving to the approval of minutes from our 5-2 meeting.
Motion for approval as drafted in our packet.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Meeting minutes of 5-2 are approved. Other business, liaison reports. We'll start with John Farrell.
I have nothing.
Tom?
I don't have a liaison report, but I did want to mention that coming up the end of this month, Memorial Day weekend, is the 20th annual Classic Car Show in the parking lot by Londonderry Square. That's where the old town hall is, where St. Mary's Bank is now. So those classic car buffs, that's being put on by the Rotary Club of Londonderry. More information, you can contact LondonderryRotary.com.
Cool. Thanks, Tom. Tom?
The planning board had a meeting with Mr. Kettenbeck on Woodmont. Fairly large attendance. What they did was they outlined per section of the PUD master plan proposal what they're going, in writing, what they're proposing to do by listing the amount of acres, the number of houses they're proposing, if housing, or whatever type of building they're suggesting.
They're going to refine the plan. Additionally, there was some comment and some suggested changes by members of the planning board to some sections and by members of the public.
Cool. Thank you, Tom. Joe?
I have none.
Okay, and I had nothing to speak of. Okay, Dave, you're up.
Nothing additional to report at this time.
Okay. No, there's nothing on board committee appointments, reappointments, so I'll...
Motion to adjourn.
Second. We need a second.
Second.
Second for Tom Frieda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Wow.